It started with champagne, always champagne. The bubbles rising like clockwork promises, the same crystal flutes, the same gold smile he wore like armor. He was dazzling, of course. That's how they get you. And for a while, I believed him. My name is Ilara Das, and once upon a time, I was the perfect accessory. He used to joke that I was his lucky charm, his words, not mine. I was 27, newly married, and hopelessly naive. I thought marrying Damon Varick meant stepping into a world of elegance and security. In truth, I'd just become part of a collection. Because that's what Damon did best, collect. Cars, art, friends, power, and me. Our home overlooked the Hudson, floor-to-ceiling glass, white marble floors so polished you could see your own reflection and wonder if it was still yours. He had a way of making even silence feel choreographed. His schedule was law, his reputation gospel, and I was the priestess meant to uphold it. The rules were simple: smile, stand tall, speak little, look perfect. At dinners, I laughed when he needed me to. At galas, I stood half a step behind him, the obedient shadow of his success. He'd touch the small of my back when he wanted to remind everyone that I was his, not his partner, his property. It didn't happen all at once, the unraveling. It began the way rot always does, quietly, under the surface. He'd come home late, smelling of whiskey and expensive perfume that wasn't mine. His cufflinks would be mismatched. He'd brush off my questions with that smooth smile of his. "Ilara," he'd say, tone patient but cold, "do you really want to ruin our evening over something so trivial?" And I'd swallow my anger, because his words always came with invisible strings. I used to think he was untouchable, until the night I learned what he really did after those networking dinners. It was supposed to be another gala, another charity event where people in gowns pretended to care about the world beyond the ballroom doors. I'd forgotten my clutch in his office at home, and when I went to retrieve it, his laptop was open, not locked, not password protected, just open. At first, I wasn't snooping. I just wanted to close it, to avoid another one of his lectures about boundaries. But then I saw the document titles: Asset Transfer Unregistered, Shell Account Summary, Offshore Allocations, Internal Use Only, and one file name that made my blood run cold: Ilara Trust Confidential. I clicked. Inside were records, false signatures, hidden bank accounts, transactions with my name attached. He was using me as a front for money laundering. My social security number, my digital signature, even my maiden name, to make it harder to trace. It wasn't just betrayal, it was entrapment. I realized then, but if Damon ever went down, I'd go with him. That's when fear turned into clarity. For weeks, I played my role, the perfect wife, the perfect smile. He'd walk through the door, and I'd kiss him like nothing had changed. Inside, though, I was unraveling and rebuilding. I started small: backups of files, notes of meetings he mentioned, times, dates, associates. He underestimated me. That was his biggest mistake. Damon never noticed when I started carrying my phone to every event, always pretending to check my reflection, but actually recording his conversations. He never realized I was photographing documents he carelessly left open. He never considered that I'd be capable of more than pretending. One night, after a gala, I overheard him on the phone. He was in his study, door cracked just enough. His tone was sharp, impatient. No paper trail. We've done this before. Use the Zurich account, not the Cayman one, and make sure the report says the funds were for the Rivera project. Then, after a pause, "She doesn't know anything. She's too busy picking out centerpieces." I remember gripping the staircase rails so tightly my nails dug into the wood. Too busy picking out centerpieces. That's what I was to him, a prop in heels. And that's when the idea began to take shape, cold, methodical, and almost beautiful in its simplicity. He had a grand event coming up, his annual foundation gala, the Varick Legacy Fund, he called it. In reality, it was a front, laundering disguised as philanthropy. Donations in, investments out, all carefully massaged through offshore accounts. He'd be surrounded by the press, by his board, by every investor who believed in his image. If I played this right, I wouldn't just free myself, I'd burn his kingdom to ash. I spent nights mapping every detail. I contacted an old acquaintance, Lydia Mace, a journalist I'd once met at a fundraiser. She'd been digging into white-collar fraud for years. We met in secret, at a coffee shop 2 towns over. I wore sunglasses and a scarf. Ridiculous, maybe, but paranoia had become my armor. I have something, I told her quietly, sliding a flash drive across the table. What kind of something? She asked.
The kind that ends careers. Her eyebrows lifted, then softened. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I said. I want the truth to have my husband's name on it. For the next month, I kept acting, playing the doting wife, attending fittings for the gala, hosting dinner parties for his associates. Damon was more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. He'd started to trust my silence again. He even handed me the guest list one evening, saying, I want you to see how important this will be for us, Alara. We're finally stepping into a bigger circle. I smiled, tracing the embossed names with my finger. Bigger circle? I echoed. I can't wait. He didn't know I meant the circle of cameras waiting to catch him fall. The night of the gala was luminous, chandeliers dripping in gold, 100 glittering eyes reflecting the illusion Damon had built. I wore silver silk and a quiet smile. Every camera flash felt like a countdown. Damon gave his usual speech, something about legacy, integrity, the future. He looked at me from the podium, gesturing toward me like a trophy on display. And to my wife, he said, smiling, the heart behind everything I do. If only he knew how true that line would become. As the applause rose, I felt my phone buzz in my clutch. One message from Lydia. Live feed up. They're broadcasting in 3, 2, 1. The ballroom screens behind Damon flickered. His presentation, the one he'd personally reviewed that morning, shifted to a slideshow of numbers. Real numbers, wire transfers, fake shell companies. Then came screenshots, emails between him and his partners, documents linking him to laundering, property fraud, and tax evasion. And finally, a photo of his forged signature under my name. The room went silent. I watched his face drain of color. He turned toward the screen, eyes darting, desperate, confused. Then came the flashes, not from the slideshow, but from cameras. The press Lydia had tipped off were already there, lenses raised, capturing the collapse of Damon Varick. Security moved fast, but not as fast as the federal agents who arrived minutes later. Someone shouted, "This event is under federal investigation." Damon looked around, furious. Who did this? I met his eyes across the ballroom. He knew. I didn't have to say a word. As they led him out in handcuffs, his cufflinks gleamed under the chandeliers, the same ones I'd fastened for him every morning. He looked back once, mouth tight, not angry, just hollow. And I lifted my champagne glass, the one he'd poured me before his speech, and toasted to the silence he'd left behind. The next morning, every major news outlet ran the story. Business tycoon Damon Varick arrested for fraud and embezzlement. They called me the wife who knew. I didn't correct them. I wasn't his wife anymore. Freedom didn't feel like I thought it would. It wasn't cinematic. It was quiet. I moved out before his lawyers could freeze the accounts he'd opened in my name. I signed nothing, touched nothing. I left with a single suitcase and the silver necklace my mother gave me years ago, the only thing that ever belonged solely to me. For months, I disappeared, stayed in a rental by the coast where no one knew my name. Sometimes I'd see his face on the news, that same practiced smirk replaced by a grimace. He'd taken a plea deal, trying to pin it all on his associates. It didn't work. He's serving 9 years now. 9 years for every lie he thought I'd never see. I used to wonder if I'd gone too far, if I could have simply walked away. But then I'd remember his words, the way he'd talk over me, the way he'd smirk whenever I doubted myself. "You'd be nothing without me, Alara." No, Damon, I was nothing because of you. Now I am everything in spite of you. A year later, Lydia published a feature, "The Woman Who Outsmarted the Empire." She asked if I wanted to give a statement. I declined. Instead, I told her one sentence: "Some prisons have marble floors." She smiled. "That's your headline." Sometimes, late at night, I pour myself a glass of champagne. Not the brand Damon loved, but a cheap bottle I pick myself. I drink it barefoot in the soft light of a place that smells like salt and quiet. And I think of how strange it is to survive something that looked so beautiful from the outside, to learn that revenge doesn't have to be violent to be complete. It can be as delicate as a smile, as silent as truth finding its way into the light. Once I was a trophy wife. Now I am my own victory. And that, I've learned, is the sweetest kind of revenge.
You've just stepped into her revenge side, where every wound finds its justice, and every silence ends with truth. If her story struck a chord, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Another secret waits in the next video. See how her revenge begins.